After 50, your gut microbiome shifts dramatically. Beneficial bacteria like Akkermansia decline, while inflammatory ones surge. Researchers now have a name for it: gut dysbiosis. And here's what makes this alarming: that imbalance doesn't just affect digestion. It silently drives faster aging at the cellular level. Here's how to reset it. Welcome to Second Prime, where science meets your second chapter. Today, we're going deep into one of the most underappreciated aging mechanisms out there: your gut microbiome. The bacteria that start disappearing after 50, why that matters more than most people realize, and the 5 concrete steps the research supports for shifting things back. Let's start with what actually changes. In your 20s and 30s, a healthy gut is a diverse one. Hundreds of microbial species in rough balance, producing protective compounds, keeping inflammation low. After 50, that balance shifts. Studies consistently show a measurable drop in microbial diversity with age, and 2 bacteria in particular go into free fall. The first is Akkermansia muciniphila. The second is Faecalibacterium prausnitzii. Hold those names. They matter more than almost anything else we'll talk about today. Akkermansia muciniphila. This is the one researchers keep coming back to. It lives in your gut lining, feeding on mucin, the protective layer that lines your intestinal wall. When Akkermansia is abundant, that wall stays intact. When it declines, the lining thins. Research from Patrice Cani's lab in Belgium found that Akkermansia abundance inversely correlates with metabolic syndrome, frailty, and inflammatory markers in older adults. And centenarian microbiome studies, including the 2023 Nature Aging Analysis, found that people who make it past 100 tend to retain significantly more Akkermansia than the general population. That correlation alone tells you something important. Now, Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, the second one to know. It makes up 5 to 10% of a healthy adult gut, and its main job is producing butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid that feeds your colon cells, suppresses inflammation, and acts as a firewall against gut leakiness. Research published in PMC found that F. prausnitzii levels drop by roughly 40% in older adults. 40%. The drop is even sharper in people with cardiovascular disease or early cognitive decline. If you needed a single bacterial marker that tracks gut aging, this might be it. If this is useful so far, hit the like button. It genuinely helps us reach more people over 50. Here's where it all connects. I covered inflammaging in depth in episode 28. It's linked on screen. But briefly, inflammaging is the chronic, low-grade inflammation that builds silently after 50 and underlies nearly every major age-related disease: heart disease, diabetes, cognitive decline, sarcopenia. Gut dysbiosis is one of the most direct drivers we know. Here's why. When Akkermansia declines and the gut lining thins, your intestinal wall becomes permeable, what researchers call leaky gut. Bacterial fragments called lipopolysaccharide, or LPS, escape into your bloodstream. LPS is a distress signal to your immune system. It triggers a continuous low-grade immune response. That response is inflammaging. A 2023 paper in Disease Models and Mechanisms described intestinal barrier dysfunction as an evolutionarily conserved hallmark of aging, not a side effect of getting older. part of the aging process itself. So, that's the problem laid out clearly. But here's what I want you to take from this. It's not fixed. The microbiome is one of the most responsive systems in your body. You can shift it in weeks. 5 steps. Let's go. Step 1. Fiber diversity. Not just fiber. Diversity of fiber. That distinction matters. The American Gut Project found that people who eat 30 or more different plant foods per week have significantly more diverse gut microbiomes than those eating 10 or fewer. Not 30 servings. 30 different types. 1 apple, 1 banana, walnuts, 2 types of beans, 3 different vegetables at dinner. Those all count separately. Different plant fibers feed different bacterial species. The more variety, the wider the microbial range you support. Target for this week. Count your plants. Aim for variety first, quantity second. Step 2. Fermented foods. This one has the strongest single study behind it. Stanford's Sonnenberg lab published a randomized trial in Cell in 2021. Participants ate either a high fermented food diet or a high fiber diet for 10 weeks. The fermented food group showed a consistent increase in microbial diversity, and this is the part that stopped people, a significant decrease in 19 inflammatory proteins measured in the blood. 19, including markers directly linked to inflammaging. The foods weren't exotic. Yogurt, kefir, fermented cottage cheese, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha. Daily servings, not supplements. Aim for 1 to 2 servings per day. Kefir in the morning, a small bowl of kimchi at dinner. That's enough to move the needle. Step 3. Polyphenols, and this one connects directly back to Akkermansia. Akkermansia responds to a class of plant compounds called polyphenols. A 2016 study found that pomegranate elagitanins specifically stimulate its growth in vivo. A 2023 review confirmed the connection across multiple polyphenol sources. The mechanism: polyphenols reach the lower gut largely undigested, where Akkermansia ferments them into beneficial metabolites, including urolithins, which in turn feed back to support more Akkermansia growth. It's a positive feedback loop. Best sources: pomegranate, cranberries, green tea, dark berries, dark chocolate above 80% cacao. A cup of green tea and a handful of mixed berries daily is a meaningful start. No exotic supplements required. Step 4. Time-restricted eating. I'll be honest, this one has more preliminary evidence than the others, but it's suggestive. A 2024 study in iScience found that the microbiome mediated a significant share of time-restricted eating's benefits, and Akkermansia was specifically enriched in the TRE group. The proposed mechanism is circadian. Your gut microbiome has its own daily rhythm and expects a fasting window, a period when bacteria can repair and rebalance. When we eat across 16+ hours a day, that rhythm breaks down. A 12 to 16-hour window, eating between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., for example, appears to give the gut the rest it needs. If you already do any form of intermittent fasting, you may have this covered. Step 5. Resistant starch. This one gets overlooked, partly because it sounds technical, but the concept is simple. Resistant starch is fiber your small intestine can't digest, so it reaches the large intestine where bacteria, particularly Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, fermented into butyrate. That's the compound keeping your gut lining intact and inflammation suppressed. Here's the practical part. Cooked and cooled potatoes, rice, and pasta contain significantly more resistant starch than the hot versions. Same food, different preparation. Legumes, lentils, black beans, chickpeas are another strong source. Slightly underripe banana, too. Cook a batch of lentils or potatoes, refrigerate overnight, eat the next day. Cold potato salad with olive oil. Lentil soup reheated. That's it. So, what does a practical day actually look like? Breakfast, kefir or yogurt, with mixed berries or pomegranate seeds, fermented food and polyphenols handled. Lunch, a salad with 4 or 5 different vegetables and yesterday's lentils on the side. Plant diversity and resistant starch in one bowl. Dinner, a varied plate, 3 or more vegetables, different colors. Green tea somewhere in the day. Stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bed. That's the 5 steps woven into one day. No supplements, no expensive probiotic powders. Food, variety, and timing. Start this week. Here's my question for the comments. Which of these 5 steps is the one you're least likely to do? The fiber variety, fermented foods, polyphenols, fasting window, or resistant starch? Tell me, because that's where I'll go deeper in a future video. Subscribe if you haven't. New videos every Monday and Thursday. And if you want the